We live in paradise. Isn't it amazing? Yes. So yesterday was Valentine's Day. It's a tough one for many people. How many had a thumbs up? How many people had a thumbs down? Not so many. Had a thumbs like, not so, yeah, whatever. So I know that for so many people, that day is a real trigger. Because it comes where, did I get on the love train? Am I still on the platform? Or did it just pass me by? So the topic today is trust love. I have two sayings about trust, which is trust is earned and never trust anybody who says trust me. So when we think about love, when I was a kid, there was this concept of original sin. And the idea of original sin was this little baby was born with sin, and that they had to get baptized. And I remember saying to Sister Roseanne, I was in high school, and I said, hey, wait a minute. What happens to those people in India that have no idea about baptism? She said, it's baptism of desire, which kind of didn't make sense to me. But the idea that these little babies, if they didn't get baptized, were going to go to limbo, this limbo place that was, we were not in or you were not out, made not so much sense. So I have the idea of original innocence. And original innocence is the knowing the truth that you are loved by the divine as a precious creation of the divine, deeply and dearly loved, always have been and always will be. You are the divine creation of the beloved Creator, always have been and always will be loved. But what happens? We forget. And I believe that's the human experience. We come in knowing and we forget. So there's this story that was kind of traveling around back a number of years ago where this little girl ached. She kept begging her parents to have time alone with her baby brother, who was an infant. And they were really afraid, because sometimes, children, they're kind of jealous, they didn't know what she was going to do, so they go, we have the baby monitor. We can let her go in by herself, and we can hear what she's saying. So they hear her go in, and they hear this voice saying, baby, tell me about God. Tell me about heaven. I seem to be forgetting. And that's what happens to us. We come in remembering, knowing the truth, that we are divine beings, and yet we forget. So how does that happen? When we're children, we assume that everything that happens to us is our fault. Our parents are these divine beings, and that if they look at us crossways, that must be something I did. If they got divorced, it was my fault. If my father died at 4, which did happen, it was my fault. So over time, we develop these parts of us that believe that there's something wrong with us. And I grew up in Minnesota. There are no palm trees in Minnesota. Just saying. A lot of snow, but no palm trees. I love palm trees. That's one of the reasons I love being here, because my two favorite trees are palm trees and evergreen trees. I got them both. And so I saw an advertisement in a magazine for palm trees. And so I sent back then you sent cash. So I sent my little cash in the envelope, and the palm tree came, little bitty palm tree. And I gave it to my mother for Mother's Day, because that was something I loved, and I wanted her to love it too. Well, a couple months later, I found the palm tree very dead in the basement. I was devastated. I assumed that was the reason that she didn't love me because she didn't take care of my palm tree. Now, my mother had 11 children. I was one of 11 children, yes, yes, yes. She was very overwhelmed. We lived in a teeny little 3-bedroom apartment house. And the idea of her taking care of my palm tree, probably she had no idea how much it meant to me. And so what I know in working with people, and I've worked with, back then I was a psychotherapist for many, many years, and I worked with trauma, horrible, horrible stories. And I bear witness to a lot of trauma that people experienced. But I know that deep down inside, there was a self inside that was never harmed, that was whole and complete. Didn't matter the trauma that they had. And I also know that every single person had someone in their life or something that actually loved them. But it was hard to take that in because it wasn't their parents. It could have been a tree, it could have been a neighbor, it could have been a teacher, it could have been a dog or a violin that sustained them. That was the little angel that the divine brought for them. So what happens? Trust. How do we trust? How do we trust when our trust has been violated? How do we get that trust back, that knowing, that remembering? So a number of years ago, I moved to China. People go, why did you move to China? I needed a life reset. I had had a lot of betrayal. I had chronic fatigue for 20 years. I needed something that was totally different than I had ever wanted. And when my friend who had moved there first sent me a picture of them trying to cook a turkey and a wok at Thanksgiving, I said, I'm in. Because, that's really different. So, but I was still traumatized. I was still felt like a betrayal. I came kind of broken. And I was traveling, which you do, it's really cheap to travel there, to a place called Dali. Now, Dali is the place that they say, if you want a vacation from your Chinese vacation, you go to Dali. And Dali is the place where you can actually get a Western breakfast. A breakfast of toast and hash browns and eggs and really good coffee, which is kind of something you can't get in many other places in China. So I'm walking around Dali, really appreciating it, but realizing that I wasn't happy. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel cared for. I felt that God had betrayed me. So one night, I sat in my bed. I don't usually talk to God out loud. I said, God, I don't trust you. I don't trust that you're going to be there for me. Things have been really hard. I feel betrayed by you. Where have you been? I want to trust you. I want to know that you're going to be there. The next day, I was walking around, and I saw a sign for facials. I'd never had a facial, and it sounded really good. And so I went in, I got my green tea facial. I'm lying in the bed. And this woman touched me in a way that I'd never been touched before. It was nourishing. It was comforting. It was beautiful. Now, some of my mother's most favorite lines were, I wish you kids had never been born. She had 11 children. It was really overwhelming, but I can understand that. But I was never hugged. There wasn't a lot of, comfort in my life. So in that moment, and then all of a sudden I'm hearing the sounds of Bob Marley outside. I thought, oh my God, this is absolute best. And in that moment, I thought, this moment is right and good. And then all of a sudden, I felt all the trauma, all the pain, all the betrayal leave from my body. It just went down into the earth. And the earth loves compost, just saying. And so it went down into the earth. And I heard this booming voice say, "It was for this reason you came to China." My first year in China, I was not doing very well with culture shock, and I was going, "What am I doing in this godforsaken place?" It was a prayer, but not really a prayer. And I heard, "You're here to learn about joy." Joyful? I'm not very joyful. My second time, I said, second year, I said, "What am I?" Same prayer. "What am I doing in this godforsaken place?" "You're here to learn to live deliciously." And living deliciously is about really appreciating the gifts of the divine, the gifts of being in a human body. So if I look out and I see the mountains and I see the palm trees and I see the redwood trees, that's a gift of the divine. The taste, the smells, the textures, the touch of a body, the touch of ourselves. The sounds of birds, the sounds of children laughing. Those are the gifts of the divine. The gifts of being in a human body. So coming back to this idea of original innocence and the knowing that you are loved deeply and dearly, always have been and always will be. So how do we trust that? How do we know that? How do we remember those things? So I'm going to lead you in a little journey. Is that okay? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. And imagine that you're walking in a beautiful path. The sun is shining. The birds are chirping. You can feel the earth beneath your feet. There's a warm breeze against your skin. This is a beautiful day. Absolutely perfect day. In this moment, it's a perfect day. And as you continue to walk, you come to a clearing, and you see a beautiful structure. And there's an amazing light emanating from that structure. And when you get closer, you see that there's a huge cauldron, a bowl, that's beautiful. And from that cauldron is emanating a golden light of nectar. And this is the nectar of original innocence. The remembering, the knowing that you are the precious creation of the divine creator. And you see a cup next to the bowl, the cauldron. So take that cup and dip it into this nectar. And take a drink. Allow that light, that knowing, to go into the very cells of your being. Take another dip. And take another drink. And as you do that, just say to yourself, I am loved. I am deeply and dearly loved. Always have been, always will be. And take another drink, take another scoop, and pour it over your head, saying to yourself, may I know love. May I know love. And now take another dip and pour it over your hands and say to yourself, may I give and receive love. May I give and receive love. And take another dip and pour it over your feet. May I walk the path of love. May I walk the path of love. And now put your hands on your heart. I invite you to put your hands on your heart and say, God, I am loved. God, I am loved. God, I am lovable, just as I am. I am the divine creation of the beloved Creator. I am deeply and dearly loved, always have been, and always will be. I'm the divine creation of the beloved Creator. I am deeply and dearly loved, always have been, and always will be. And just when you're ready, gently open your eyes. So this is about remembering the truth. And I used to say to my clients, you have value and worth because you do two things. You breathe in and you breathe out. You breathe in and you breathe out. That's it. So we allow ourselves only the love that we feel like we deserve. And in our relationships, particularly in our relationships with ourselves, there's a saying that one of my therapists told us years and years ago, which was, every action makes a rule, reinforces a rule, or changes a rule. And most of us have actions where we're not so kind to ourselves. And that's the rule we've been playing. But what about if we change our rule? Now that we know the truth, that we are this beloved creation of the divine Creator, and treat ourselves with absolute compassionate kindness, loving kindness. And in our relationships, we treat each other with absolute loving kindness. Knowing that we're here to have this human experience, we're here because we're divine, and then we get to go home. And it's the love that we have with each other that sustains us. And if we come back to this idea of trust, I invite you to consider creating a trust journal where because we're talking about leaning into trust, right? So as you lean into trust, I'm inviting you to suspend disbelief that you can trust, that love is there, that you can trust the divine, that you can trust yourself. So at the end of the day, just document all the ways that love came to you. All the ways that the divine's love came to you is usually through other people, through other things. And all the way that you loved yourself. Because our relationship with ourselves is only as good as how we show up. As I said, every action makes a rule, reinforces a rule, and changes a rule. And when we are not kind to ourselves, it's a message that we're not worthy of kindness. We're not worthy of caring. We're not worthy of being loved deeply and dearly. And we know in religious science that we are one with the divine, and the divine is love. And I believe that basically all of us are a lot of air. And then there's these molecules that kind of stick us together. Well, what's that thing that sticks us together? Gravity or whatever. Magnets, it could be magnets, yeah. But I believe that that force field that creates form, that force field is love. So your very being is love. You are love. You're held together by love. You're here to have a human experience. And then you get to go home. And Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says, when you die, you will experience the most amazing, incredible love that you've ever experienced before. And you will be asked 2 questions. How well did you give? Love. How well did you receive love? And so I invite you to open your hearts to be loved. Open your hearts to loving. Open your hearts to knowing the truth of who you are, that you are divine. You are a divine creation, and you are deeply and dearly loved. Thank you.